Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa, our daily look at the news from across the continent. Coming up. Fighting continues in eastern DR Congo despite a deadline for M23 rebels to end hostilities. The rebels say they were not consulted over the ceasefire, which was agreed between regional leaders, including from Congo and Rwanda. Classrooms all across Uganda are closed as authorities move to curb the spread of Ebola. The nationwide shutdown comes after 8 children died from the hemorrhagic fever earlier this month, though cases have recently been on the decline. And at last, an African victory at the World Cup in Qatar. African champions Senegal beat hosts Qatar 3-1. They still have a lot of work to do to advance from the group stages, but for now, its celebrations will be live to Dakar for reaction. I'm James Mulholland. Good to have you along with us this evening. First up, a deadline to end fighting in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has come and gone, but M23 rebels have continued their attacks, advancing towards Goma, the capital of North Kivu province. Regional leaders, including the Congolese president and the Rwandan foreign minister, agreed the deal in Angola. Under it, the M23 was to pull back from occupied areas or face the intervention of the East African Regional Force. But the rebels rejected the deal, saying they weren't invited to the talks. A short while ago, I spoke to analyst and author Chris Belvolts, a columnist for MO magazine. He told me the ceasefire was not likely to hold.
The chances are very high. We have had a very intense day with, unfortunately, very harsh fighting. And what we see is that the rebels seem to encircle Goma in order to cut it off of its supply routes. So there has not been much visible from the agreement, and they distanciated themselves from it, saying, as you just said, we were not involved, we were not concerned.
Now, in your book, you look in depth at Rwanda's influence on security in the Eastern Congo. What role can it play? What role do you think it will play in restoring peace?
Well, I think that Rwanda is indeed providing support to logistic and military support to M23. So Rwanda has to stop it, and there needs to be a lot of pressure on it. At the end of the day, we have seen a statement of M23 leaving an opening of having direct talks to the Congolese government, but they referred to the massacres of people of their community that would be planned. And I don't think at all that such massacres are planned or being carried out. So at this moment, I see a bit of talking, which is a good thing, but I don't see people, communities, countries coming closer together.
Chris Belvolts, author of Congo's Violent Peace, Conflict and Struggle Since the Great African War, on the line from Ghent in Belgium. Now, the Vice President of Malawi has been arrested on corruption charges. Saulos Chilima is accused of accepting some 270,000 euros from a British businessman in exchange for government contracts. He's pleaded not guilty. Chilima was first accused by the anti-corruption watchdog in June, which led President Lazarus Chakwera to strip him of his powers. He faces 6 charges of graft in total, a first for a sitting vice president in Malawi. Uganda has imposed a nationwide shutdown of schools to curb the spread of Ebola. The decision to close the schools was taken earlier this month after 8 children died from the highly contagious hemorrhagic fever, which has so far seen 55 deaths from a total of 141 cases. It comes despite a drop in cases in recent weeks. Despite this, as we hear from some parents now, the ban is a good move.
I think this early closure was really necessary because of the situation, the Ebola situation in the country. And we know, yes, children are usually safer with us. We trust they are safer with us than staying at school, where we cannot guarantee the situation.
It was good according to the situation, because no one needs a kid to be affected with Ebola, but on the other side it affected us because we had paid the school fees fully, yet the term was cut short.
And finally, we have an African victory at the World Cup in Qatar. Senegal, the first from the continent to take away 3 points after a 3-1 win over the hosts, who can now not advance from the group stages. That after Ecuador drew with the Netherlands. Senegal's win will go a long way to easing the disappointment of their opening match, in which they were outclassed by the Dutch. But they still have a job to do, as we can see in the Group A standings here. To talk about this, our correspondent Sam Bradpiece joins us from Dakar, where he spent the afternoon in a fan zone. Sam, good evening. I imagine there's been a few celebrations where you are. How relieved were the Senegalese supporters after this victory?
Yeah, there were scenes of absolute jubilation here in the capital, Dakar. Fans delighted to see their team pick up those points against Qatar. There were standout performances from Iliman Ndiaye in attack, from Bamba Dieng, who scored a wonderful goal, and from the goalkeeper Edouard Mendy, who pulled out some absolutely heroic saves. Having said that, fans are well aware that this test against Qatar wasn't the strongest challenge that Senegal could be facing. Qatar are not known as a global footballing juggernaut. They know that the real difficulty could potentially come against Ecuador. That's their match next week, a match that Senegal are going to have to win if they are going to progress any further in this tournament. So fans are delighted, but they're awaiting the next match really with some trepidation, I should say.
Senegal, of course, are considered one of the most promising teams on the continent. So they are the African champions. They won the African Cup of Nations in February. How is it that they've turned into this powerhouse of football?
Yeah, Senegal are an extremely promising team for a number of reasons. For a start, the baseline level of fitness, not just among professional football players, but among the general population, is extremely high. Here in Senegal, people are sports crazy. If you go to a beach in Dakar, pretty much any day of the week, you will see thousands of people exercising. So that's a good baseline already. Then you have to take into account the fact that Senegal is held up as a beacon of stability in Africa. Since independence, it's not had a single coup d'etat, it's not had a single civil war, and that's the kind of environment that helps foster sporting excellence. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, there's a strong network of very high-level elite football academies in the country. We visited one such football academy, the football academy that trained Bamba Dieng, the goal scorer in today's match, to find out how footballing stars of the future are developed here in Senegal.
18-year-old Abdoulaye Faye has spent a third of his life as a student at Djamba, one of Senegal's oldest football academies. The athletic central defender is still completing his last year of high school and has high hopes of making it as a professional.
It's my dream to play in the English Premier League and to sign a contract. It's everyone's dream here.
4 members of the team that won AFCON and 3 members of the current World Cup squad were initially trained here. Scouts from top European clubs pay regular visits to Djamba in search of future talents, hardly a surprise for the coaches.
The Senegalese are not scared of anything. They can adapt and are real athletes, real sportsmen. They also work hard.
Young players receive free education and housing at the site, and older ones receive a salary. If Senegal are the champions of Africa, then academies like Djamba are at least partly responsible.
It is not just luck, it is the result of training and continuous work that Senegal has reached this level, winning the African Cup and qualifying for the World Cup. In football, as in anything else, if you don't put in the work, you don't get good results.
After Nigeria and Ghana, Senegal exports more professional football players than any other country in Africa. These players shine on the global stage, but the domestic league suffers as a result.
Today we are African champions and have qualified for 2 consecutive World Cups. Lots of money has gone into the bank account of the Senegalese Football Federation, and I think this should be reinvested in the league. We should not just rely on academies.
Senegal will need good results in the remaining group games to go further in this World Cup.
So Senegal are the only African team to have actually won a game at this World Cup. They still look the most likely to progress in the tournament, and just from talking to people here and from talking to people in other countries as well, it seems like the hopes of the continent are now beginning to rest increasingly on Senegal's shoulders. Even if they don't make it through, though, as you saw from that story about the football academy, the future looks very bright indeed.
All right, Sam, we look forward to hearing from you again in the coming days. Sam Bradpeace in the Senegalese capital, Dakar there. And that's it from us here at Eye on Africa. The international headlines are up next. Stay with us here on France 24.